Welcome to My Hometown, the program that explores clubs, organizations, businesses, and issues across Nassau and Suffolk counties and sheds light on the different towns that are making a difference.
Hello and welcome to My Hometown. My name is Bill Horan and I'm here with my co-host, Nassau Community College student Matt Leonard, coming to you once again via Zoom and being socially distant as recommended.
Have you ever wondered how to become a published author? Today we're going to learn how one local woman did just that and how Long Island was her inspiration to write her novel.
That woman is Jeannie Moon, a Huntington resident, a school librarian by day, and a USA Today Bestselling author by night. Her latest book is titled Christmas in Angel Harbor. Jeannie, welcome to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Jeannie, as I told you before the show, I love that description, librarian by day and USA Today best-selling author by night. It reminds me of Clark Kent being introduced as Superman. So hopefully you're going to tell us a lot of exciting information. But first question I have for you is, how is a best-selling author making it and librarian through this COVID-19 pandemic?
We're doing okay. School is always a challenge. We're always asked to, the key word this year has been pivot. I've been a librarian for 35 years. So I've been through my paces and, it's really just about keeping things focused on the kids. Our library is physically closed and virtually open. So I'm doing a lot of push-ins with classes, but it's really just about supporting the kids and the teachers, to make sure they get what they need. As far as the author piece, the writing is a great escape. It gives me something really positive to focus on, and it's something so it's enjoyable. It's fun. It's sometimes stressful, but I know that it makes people happy, so I go with that.
And that's what we all want, and we can all use some happiness today, Matt.
Yes.
As Bill mentioned earlier, you've just come out with a brand new book for the holiday season. Why did you write Christmas in Angel Harbor? And can you tell our listener a little about your book?
Yeah, sure. Christmas in Angel Harbor is what we call a seasoned romance. Both of my characters are 50 years old, which is unusual for the genre. Generally, romance characters run between, say, 25 and 35. But most of the readers of romance are between 40 and 65. So I figured it was about time they had something just for them. It's an emerging subgenre in romance, so I wanted to go with that. The other thing is I love Christmas books. Christmas romances are just the kind of thing that people need around the holidays. It's like Hallmark movies. Everybody loves a Hallmark movie. We can sit down, we can veg out for a couple of hours and walk away feeling, that everything is going to be okay. And that was my main inspiration. As far as the location, I was inspired by Northport. A number of my books have been located on Long Island. My Compass Cove series, if you can imagine Oyster Bay, that's where that would be. But we forget sometimes that Long Island is more than just a bunch of exits on the LIE. It's really a bunch of small communities all tied together. And I wanted to illustrate that. I think sometimes people forget why we call this place home.
Jeannie, many of your books take place on Long Island.
Yes.
And a question, and I think it's a wonderful location, but what made you choose Long Island? We seem to find romantic settings, it has to be in Venezuela or in France or England or Canada someplace. What made you choose right here, what we call home on Long Island?
That was funny. Originally, when I was writing my first series of books, which was for Penguin Random House, the Forever Love series, it was actually, Long Island was the setting, but it wasn't the focus. So we had New York City, we had things in proximity, but that wasn't the focus. And then I wrote the first book in the Compass Cove series, and I sent it to a friend of mine who is a very, very prolific and successful author. And she read it and she said, I really love the story, but I think you've got a problem. I had set the book in the Pacific Northwest. She said, your characters are looking at the wrong ocean. She said, these are New Yorkers. She said, you got to bring them home. And I said, do you really think so? And she said, absolutely. She said, you have a beautiful setting there. I want you to go explore it. So what I did was I went out and I started to look at it like I started to look at Long Island like a visitor, not somebody who's lived here her whole life. My father grew up here, so my roots are really deep in this soil. So I did, and I went, we're not, and that's when I kind of came up with the idea that we really aren't just, the LIE or the Hamptons or whatever. We have wonderful communities, and even if there's not a main street that people are dealing with, like I grew up in Huntington. We have Main Street. Northport has a Main Street. There's some wonderful Main Streets. But even if, let's say, you're in a place that doesn't have the traditional Main Street, you have church groups and you have little leagues and you have school PTAs. These are all communities and they're tight. These people care about each other. And that's really what was the inspiration for moving everything back here. Of course, it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. The North Shore is with its coves and its bays, the South Shore with the ocean. But really what we have is the people. And for all of our stereotypes, with all the stereotypes that come laced with Long Island, and sure, I can, you'll hear me with the dog and the coffee every once in a while with my language. But really, what we have are just wonderful, wonderful people.
Now, Jeannie, I'm going to ask you a secret question behind the scenes for an author like yourself.
Sure.
You're part of the Long Island fabric. You're part of Huntington, Northport area. When you go to a restaurant, let's say the fictional Sam's Steaks, do you look at Sam and say, if you give me extra French fries, I can get Sam's Steaks in my next novel and tell them how good that steak is?
Nah, I don't do that. I have included local businesses in some of my books, but for no other reason except for just love. I'm sorry, Doremo's Pizza in Huntington. It ended up in a book. It was awesome, and it always has been. And I remember it from a teenager, and I'm never going to give that up.
You don't even get a little extra ice cream on your sundae at the end of the meal?
No, it's just love. Just when somebody really, again, it's about the people. It's about the people I know and the people that I've been connected with. So. Matt's
going to probably yell at me now for getting food into the conversation again, but I'll turn it over to him.
Food's a big part of it, though. I'm half Italian.
Okay, so there you go.
Food is everything. Food
all right. Now we're friends again.
Yeah.
Bill, you're making me hungry over here. I mean,
I'm always hungry. You know that.
Taking a step back, Jeannie, can you tell us how you got your start as an author?
Yeah, sure. I actually started writing about 20 years ago. I always knew I had a book in me. I wasn't sure, when that was going to kind of release itself because I had 3 kids. I had a full-time job. I was busy. But one day I came home and I looked at my husband. I said, I think I have an idea. And he went, let me put the groceries away. You go down and write. And he said, see what you can come up with. And that was the start of my first book. It took me 9 months to write. It was terrible. And I will not lie. It was awful. But I did get some encouragement and some good advice as a result. And I was able to join, as a result, I found out about Long Island Romance Writers, which is part of Romance Writers of America, which is one of the largest writing organizations in the world. And we have a local chapter here. And through them, I not only met great authors who helped me learn about the business, but I learned my craft. But it still took me 12 years to get a traditional contract. And I did take a hiatus in there with my writing. I did take a break for a little while. But the first book didn't sell. The second book didn't sell for a long time. And finally, I actually sold on proposal because people had gotten to know me. So I just wrote a synopsis and they loved the premise. My agent was able to get me a 3-book deal with Penguin, and it hasn't stopped from there. So
That's a great story.
I didn't give up. I'm very stubborn.
No, but to start off with a 3-book deal, I think is great. I don't know what the norm is in publishing and
most deals like you'll find now in publishing is especially in genre fiction, they're going to want more than one book at a time. They'll give you a couple of books because for them, it's not just about the book; it's about building your career as an author. So it's not unusual to get a multi-book contract. Things have changed now. Self-publishing is a lot more, people are more prolific with that. It's, they get their books out there on their own. When I first started out, self-publishing was still kind of considered the vanity press, but now Kindle Direct has made it so accessible. People are making real money self-publishing. And if they do it right, they become the publisher. They do great work.
You are listening to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Matt Leonard, along with Bill Horan, and today we are talking with Jeannie Moon, who is a Huntington resident, a school librarian by day, and a USA Today bestselling author by night, and how she became a published author, and how Long Island was her writing inspiration. Now, as Bill mentioned, tell us about your writing process, and does it start with an idea, a character, a place? Where do you get your inspiration?
Generally, it will start with, I'll have an idea, premise. And I knew that I wanted, let's say, Christmas in Angel Harbor to be about, I knew I wanted a reunion story. So, and that's what this one is. And I knew that my characters were older. So what I did there was I took the premise of the trope, as we call it, the reunion story. I knew I had these two characters. And then what I did was I kind of brainstormed them out. Once I brainstormed out my characters, I kind of let it cook a little bit to see where they were gonna take me on this story. Jane, the heroine, emerged first. Her name is Jane Fallon, and she is a lifelong resident of Angel Harbor and thought she was going to travel the world. And when her father passed away, she came back to town and had to take over the bookstore that her family had owned for generations. It changed her life, but it didn't stop her life. And when I was starting to kind of noodle Jane out a bit, I kept thinking about George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life. And so I thought about that, and I thought about, well, she didn't get to do what she wanted to do, but she still made an impact. So that whole idea of everybody making an impact kind of wound through. And then my hero came in and he kind of then started talking to me a little bit. And that was how it worked. So for me, it's a combination of, let's say, a little premise that then allows characters to grow out of that. I'm a very character-driven author. So my characters will tell that story. I will have a great plan for them. And then all of a sudden I'll start writing and it goes off in a different direction. And that's just kind of the way it happens sometimes.
That was actually my next question. Do you have the book all planned out? Or I guess you said it then, or maybe or something happens to you on a day-to-day basis in life and say, gee, that was interesting. Someone offered me a sandwich and it took me a totally different path. Do you surprise yourself sometime with how the book comes out?
Absolutely. All the time. I mean, I don't plot a book down to every minute detail. I'm sort of a hybrid. There are people who are called plotters and people who are called pantsers. They write by the seat of their pants. And I'm kind of a combination of the two. I like to have a plan for my book. I have I know the beginning. I generally know how the middle's going to shape up, and I know how I want it to end. But there are times I'll be going along and I'll think I have it all figured out. And then all of a sudden I'm writing and I go off in a direction and I look at the screen and I'll go, and why did you do that exactly? So it can be a very organic process. We don't always know how it's going to go.
Jeannie, I'm just wondering, especially being a librarian, you have contact with people all day long. Do you get someone coming up to you and say, I read your fourth book and I know Eloise is me and I'm the cranky lady next door or the beautiful neighbor who moves in and lives happily ever after?
Yeah, I have had people say that, and I'm kind of like, no, unless you're a billionaire with 2 PhDs, no, you're not. I mean, there are people that I have modeled after characters, but I've told them. And I said, just so you know, I need you here, and this is what you're going to do, and this is my homage to you. My one principal at my school, before he retired, I told him, I said, by the way, I said, you're in here, so Dr. Ed, I said, that's you. I was like, and he was very, very happy. He was very flattered, and it was a wonderful character, a small character. I said, but I said, this is my goodbye to you, as you retire. So
I'm going to suggest a character. I think a radio announcer named Matt Leonard is perfect.
Okay. All right.
He could meet a woman just about 4 years
Come on,
older than
Bill.
him because he's so
Watch
young.
out, Matt. You never know. You never know. I always tell everybody, they say, well, what, where do you get your ideas? And I'm going, everything is material. Absolutely everything is material.
Matt, you're going to be in that next book. I can tell.
Normally I'm
when you
pretty
ask
comfortable
me
doing
if
these.
I see things happen in the everyday. Yes, everything is inspiration.
I think it's time to bring a college student into a love
If
story.
I ever decide, Matt, you never know. I'll let you know.
Normally I'm pretty comfortable with these interviews. Bill, you're making me nervous about every word I say now.
You're sweating. I see you're sweating.
Yes.
I'll go back to you now. I'll give you a chance to get me back.
All right. I understand, Jeannie, you've published around 20 books already. So what advice do you have for aspiring first-time authors?
Well, I think I said it earlier. You can't give up. And there are a lot more paths now to publish with self-publishing and small presses that have really emerged with the advent of digital publishing. And I did the Big Five route. It's not the only way to go. You don't always have to have an agent. So I think a couple of things is find writers, a group of writers, and there are a number of them on Long Island, where you can learn about the business and learn about the different paths. I think that's one thing. You can't know too much about how publishing works. And the different steps you need to take. I mean, even people who self-publish, everybody thinks, oh, you write the book and you throw it up on Amazon. You don't. You need a developmental editor. You need a copy editor. You need a proofreader. You need a cover designer. You need it formatted. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. So if that's the route you want to take, find out those steps. If you want to go traditional with a Big Five publisher or even a small press, find out those steps. So find people who can help you, number one, and help you learn. Take classes. There's a ton of stuff available online. Public libraries are great resources for writing classes and meeting writers. I give library classes all the time. And then the other thing is don't give up, because this business is it is just full of roadblocks and it can discourage you. But if you really think you've got a story to tell, just know there is somebody out there who wants to read it or hear it. And it's like any creative endeavor, it's hard sometimes. And you put your ego out there and you put your soul into it, and it's hard because it can come back, and it feels like when somebody rejects it, they're rejecting you personally, not the work. And you have to learn how to balance that.
I guess that's what you have to remember. It's the work, not yourself. You're right. A wonderful person. You're a friend, etc. Jeannie, I'm wondering, how do you find time with a 9-to-5 job as a school librarian? Are you ever dealing with someone and all of a sudden you go, ooh, the butler did it. I've got to go, have him drop the frying pan on the lady's head or something.
No, I mean, I'm a high school librarian. I'm at work at 7 a.m, and I'm usually home by 3:30 or 4 o'clock. And I deal with teenagers for the most part. It's so they aren't my audience necessarily. People always ask, why aren't you writing young adults? And I go, because I deal with them all day, and that's fine. And I love my job. I have a great job. I'm probably going to retire in a couple of years, but I've been doing this for a long time, so I do like it. But the timing is better now that I don't have small kids at home. All my kids are grown. But when my kids were younger and I was running carpools in the afternoon and things like that, and I was trying to get myself published, it was tough. I was up late a lot of nights, writing and getting books done. and trying to figure it all out.
Jeannie, when you get an idea, do you dictate it or do you just write down 2 words? The butler, butler did it, or use ham and eggs, or meet Mary at the Cove or something?
Oh, I have a notebook, and I will if I get an idea, I'll try to write out as much as I can about it. And I longhand a lot of ideas. Like I'll write character histories and biographies and things like that, and I'll do that in longhand. And then sometimes I'll just sit down and I'll write a first paragraph, or I'll put it in my file of to be writtens that I have on my computer.
To be writtens, okay.
I have a bunch of those, so I don't know if I'll ever get to them. And I have people who are asking me. I have readers who are saying, "Are you ever going to write this book?" And I'm going, "It's on the schedule, but I don't know when."
Do you ever go the reverse way? You get a great title and say, "Now I got to write a book about that"?
Oh, they never take my titles. Never. Publishers will almost always change your title. I've only had 3 titles out of 18 books that have the publishers and my editors have gone, "Yeah, that works."
Wow.
Yeah, you don't have a say generally in titles and covers. With Thule, my press now, I do have input on the covers though, which is nice.
Matt?
You are listening to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Matt Leonard, and I'm along with Bill Horan. And today we are talking with Jeannie Moon, who is a Huntington resident, a school librarian by day, and a USA Today bestselling author by night, about how she became a published author and about how Long Island was her writing inspiration. I have a pretty important question to myself next, and that is, I am a music major and a musician, and I write my own music. So my question to someone else that just writes anything, what do you do when you get writer's block?
Oh, that's so hard. And I had quite a bout of it I'd say 2 books ago. It's crushing. It's hard. Because it's so much a part of who you are. But I think what you have to do is when that block happens is you have to look at why it's happened. A lot of times it's stress, it's burnout, it's that you've tried to do too much. I mean, there was one year I published 5 books. I don't do that anymore. It was too much. So I think if you're dealing with writer's block or any kind of creative block, I think it's time to give yourself a little bit of grace and step back and know that even, the seasons are the way they are and not everything blooms all year. Flowers have downtime. The trees have downtime. You're allowed downtime too. And sometimes you just have to let those cook. Just because you're not putting something on the page either doesn't mean you're not creating. That creation can come inside. Just because I'm not writing something on a page doesn't mean I'm not writing. Those characters are still bubbling around inside. And a lot of times what happens is when I do sit down to write, they come out all at once. And that's probably the way it is with a lot of creatives. I think that whole idea that you have to write every day or that you have to create something every day, I don't think that's true. And I think it's a disservice to people who don't do it, because that doesn't mean you're not a creative. It just means that you do it differently.
Jeannie, do you have to, in dealing with publishers, let's say you write a book, you think it's a good, and I don't mean just you, but a writer, they think it's a good book. Should they send a copy of the book or just chapter 1 or the idea to the publisher? Or is that something you don't do?
Yeah, I think it depends on where you are in your career. For me, when I want to write a book, if I have an idea for a book, I will let my agent know. I do have a literary agent. I've been with her since 2012. And we have a great working relationship. And she'll say, well, you know what? Yeah, I think your publisher now, I think that's great. Why don't you, call up Megan or, the editorial director if you want. I'll send her a note and say, I have this idea. And she'll say, okay, flesh it out for me. And I'll write her a synopsis and send it. And she'll, let me know if they're interested or not. And that's great. And if my agent thinks it's a great idea and my publisher doesn't want it, she'll say, okay, look, why don't you do a proposal on this? So a proposal is a synopsis and say the first 3 chapters are 50 pages. And then we can send it out and see who nibbles. If I were unpublished, I'd have to write the whole book first. Because first of all, they want to see that you can complete the book. And granted, I sold on proposal, but the person that offered me the contract had seen 2 of my other books, and they passed on them, even though she liked them a lot. So when she had the opportunity to offer me something, she did. But a newly published author is going to have a full first draft that's been gone through at least once or twice. So a review. A lot of publishers don't take unagented submissions, so you may have to get a literary agent. Some do, though. So you have to feel that out. For me, though, I'm looking at possibly a book down the line being a little bit out of my genre. I'm looking at a women's fiction, which is a little bit of a change. And my agent said, yeah, you have to write the whole book. So I have to write the whole thing before it will get submitted and sent out. So it's not that I'm starting over, but I do have to treat it differently.
How did you find the right publisher? Like, what's that process like for you?
Oh, it's hard. I don't know that there's a right answer to that question because everything is different. It's not that I found the publisher. For me, I found an agent, and I was looking to go traditional. Like I said, I started seriously getting to business on this around 2010. I signed with my agent in 2012. So I found somebody who was really interested in a book I had and was going to advocate for my work. And then the deal with Penguin came up, and that kind of changed the focus. What happens is that your literary agent is the one who's going to, if you're looking at a traditional deal with a big press, they're the ones that are going to send your book out and field the offers. If you're looking at small presses, I would do a lot of research. There's a lot of information out there. There are places you can look, like there are tons and tons and tons of sources online that will tell you about different publishing houses and what they're looking for and how their submission process looks, and see if it's a good fit. And then if you do get an offer, make sure you talk to the editor. Make sure you talk to the editorial director. Get a good feel for what they want from you. Now, if you get a contract offer, make sure you have somebody who knows the industry look at the contract, so that you're not signing your rights away for 25 years with no way out, that kind of thing. That's what my agent does for me. But there are literary attorneys who will do that. There are organizations who will do that for you.
Jeannie, I think the smartest thing we can do is get in touch with you and sneak into your library. You sound like a wealth of advice, someone who's been there, done that, and have gone through the highs and lows of being an author. So I thank you for all that great information today. I think we're all going to be looking forward to your next book and to find out what's happening on Long Island. And I'm sure I'll see me in there and I'll see Matt in there someplace.
Of course.
Yeah,
absolutely.
different age groups of the span. So you can take the two of us and come out right in the middle, which will probably be perfect for your market. Jeannie, we want to thank you so much for being with us today and let our audience know we've been speaking with Jeannie Moon. She's a Huntington resident, a school librarian by day, and a USA Today bestselling author by night. Jeannie, good luck and congratulations on your
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
I'd like our audience to know that I'm Bill Horan. I'm here with Matt Leonard. We thank you for listening to this week's special edition of My Hometown.
We like to get your feedback on My Hometown. Send your comments to WHPC at ncc.edu. Nassau Community College, where success starts and continues. Till next time, this is Bill St. James. And remember, there's no town like your hometown.